Last week, the New York Knicks suffered yet another franchise embarrassment after failing to acquire Donovan Mitchell through a trade despite all the pieces being in place to make that happen. But with all of these great assets still at their disposal, they can shift their focus to another player, and rumors have it that they are interested in acquiring OG Anunoby through trade from the Toronto Raptors. So in today's video, we're going to break down what the New York Knicks would have to give up in order to make this trade happen, and if the Raptors should actually consider trading their prize forward. Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA and Raptors fans? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Hour Sports for another Toronto Raptors YouTube video. On this channel, I bring you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. I'm doing it all throughout the offseason, so if you like what you see from today's video, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and you can help me on my road to 12,000 subscribers. Also, if you find yourself enjoying this video along the way, be sure to drop a like. That gives it extra bit of support. Let's try to get to 250 likes on today's video. But our video in question is about the New York Knicks' reported interest in OG Anunoby through a trade, because yes, there was yet another embarrassing moment in the franchise. Over the last 2 decades, it's just been like nothing but hurt for the New York Knicks fans. As bad as it might get for your team, no matter where you are, as bad as it might get, at least you're not a Knicks fan, because they have just been trying to rebuild, just restarting every rebuild constantly. And it seemed like a lot of the pieces were in the right place to actually kind of get out of this rebuild here. I mean, they got Jalen Brunson in free agency. That was a good pickup. They may have paid a little bit too much, but, as salary caps change, maybe that won't look so bad in a couple of years. But then the big one, the superstar player that they could have acquired, was Donovan Mitchell. They had all of the assets in place to make it happen. They knew, Utah knew that they had the best assets in order to make this trade happen. Donovan Mitchell wanted to go to the New York Knicks. Everything was there for them to make this trade happen, but what ended up happening? Donovan Mitchell got traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers instead, despite the fact that, again, the Knicks had more to offer than the Cleveland Cavaliers did. But they kept, lowballing the Utah Jazz. The Jazz got impatient. They wanted this trade done before training camp begun. And the Cavaliers were ready to make the trade that they made because it was a great trade for the Cavaliers. And Utah were done waiting around for the New York Knicks. And the Knicks, yesterday, they were talking about they were trying to blame the Jazz because they didn't get enough time to match the offer or better the offer. But in reality, they had months after the season to actually make this trade happen. And nothing ended up happening. Donovan Mitchell is on the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the New York Knicks are going into this season, going into this training camp at least, without a plan in place for this season. I mean, they signed Jalen Brunson. They want to be a good team. They want to be a playoff team, but I really struggle seeing them to do so with the current crop of players that they have. But even though they did not get Donovan Mitchell, which again is a little bit embarrassing for the franchise, quite a bit embarrassing rather for the franchise, they still have all of these picks and all of these assets, not decent assets, mostly it's the picks available to trade. They had all this stuff ready to go for Donovan Mitchell. There were rumors they were going to give up 5 or 6 unprotected firsts because they have a lot of their own picks. They have a lot of other teams' picks. They can reposition. They can find another player now that they can trade for going into the season to make their team better. And as I mentioned in the intro, there are a little bit of speculational reports suggesting that the New York Knicks are going to have interest in trading for OG Anunoby. And what I usually start with when we talk about OG Anunoby trades, because we talk about a ton of OG Anunoby trades, and the reason we talk about so many of these Anunoby trades is because, well, the Raptors, obviously, a lot of forwards on their team. They can make it work. They showed last season they can make it work with a bunch of forwards in the team. So it's not a particular problem in terms of playtime. Sure, OG Anunoby may have expressed earlier on in the offseason he wanted a little bit of a bigger role, and these things can happen. Nick Nurse can tinker things to make that sort of thing happen. But the reason there are so many reports surrounding OG Anunoby getting traded is that OG is a player that fits everywhere. Every single team in the NBA would want a player like OG Anunoby, somebody who can play a few positions, somebody who can guard legitimately the 1 through 5 on the defensive end, somebody who can sit on the outside and hit threes, be a complementary piece to the star players within the current team. Everybody would want an OG Anunoby on their team, and the New York Knicks would be no different. Imagine having a team where you've got RJ Barrett and Jalen Brunson commanding the ball, being the most dominant ball handlers, and having the ability to have OG Anunoby on the outside. I think OG, for this season, something that he should focus on is we're waiting for this evolvement and this leap as an offensive player. And I think where he can really get to the next step is being more of a ball-dominant player, more of a ball handler, shooting in mid-range. But I just don't see those things ever really getting to such a level where he can do that consistently. So the focus for him should be knocking down threes incredibly efficiently, which he has done the last couple of seasons. Maybe he can get back up to that like 40% that he shot in the Tampa season, and also getting to the rim with a lot more force, finishing at the rim with a lot more authority, like just really fine-tuning those things that he already does well rather than trying to evolve his game to other stuff. Just the stuff that he does now, the things that he does well now, make those things even better. That is going to make him an even more dangerous player for any team to have. And maybe the Knicks kind of understand this thing. Put that guy at the 3 spot, RJ at the 2, Jalen Brunson at the 1, Julius Randle at the 4, whoever you have at center, Mitchell Robinson at the 5. That's a pretty damn good team, and the Knicks, with a lot of assets at their disposal, can give the Raptors the picks that they want. And the Raptors are great with their draft picks. They are very well known for drafting well. Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, very well known, specifically Ujiri, for the scouting that is done pre-draft and finding these diamond-in-the-rough type players. And, if you're getting picks from the New York Knicks, I mean, you can really expect to get a lot of good draft picks if they're unprotected from the Knicks. And that is exactly what the Raptors could get in this situation for Anunoby. So the conversation would have to be if it is worth it for the Raptors to actually make this trade. Because from a value standpoint, if the New York Knicks are willing to pay up, and that's a big if, which we will cover a little bit later on in this video, if the Knicks are willing to pay up, you're going to get a good return for OG Anunoby. We haven't discussed yet the exact specifics of that, but you can get a good return. If you get a good return, is it worth it to put your future in the hands of these picks? Or is your timeline a little bit more pressed than that? Do you need players immediately on your team that are going to help you out? OG can definitely do that. He's got 2 years left on his current contract, making under $18 million this season. I think it's just above $17 million. Next season, making about $18.6 million in that backloaded contract. Very team-friendly contract. Very good value to have on your team. He's got a player option worth just under $20 million in the season after that when he's about 27 years old. Feel like he'll turn that down, seeking that 4-year contract kind of goes all throughout his prime where he's making the most money he's going to make in his career. We'll see. It's a long while away, 2 years away, but I don't think he'll end up taking that player option. But regardless, you got 2 years of on contract on great value. That is something that the New York Knicks could bring in, and the Raptors have to consider that. I mean, OG, like we saw earlier on in the offseason, maybe he feels like he can get a bigger role of the team, but I was mentioning what OG is going to do well, if he continues to do well, is just not just be like a spot-up three-point shooter, but him being able to play on the outside, having to go guard OG Anunoby. That really helps the stars in the team have that extra amount of space on the inside, and going to this season, Scottie Barnes, Rookie of the Year, we have so much faith in him as a player. He's going to be getting the ball a lot more often, and OG may struggle to get all of the touches that he wants to get, and I think maybe he can get a little bit more of those touches on the New York Knicks, maybe a more inferior team here. Maybe that's something that he wants. He wants to increase his personal value, maybe wants to increase his personal brand. I don't know what his motives are, but as it comes to the Raptors here, the problem would be having to replace Anunoby. Right now, we have a really good crop of players. We've hard capped ourselves by giving Christian Koloko that 3-year rookie contract. Right now, OG is a starter and a very important one on this team. And the reason all these teams are interested in is because the way he fits in, the way he plays defense, the way he plays offense, as I mentioned earlier, the Raptors are just as enthralled with this player, and they just as much want to have him on their team for the next few years and hopefully extend him after those 2 years if he does turn down that player option, or extend him in 3 years after he takes that player option for his contract. Knowing this, the Raptors, getting those sort of picks, can you really find the value that OG has in those picks? Going to be very difficult to do. If the New York Knicks go all out to get him, you're going to get like maybe 3 picks. Some of those might come from other teams. Like I think they have a pick from the Nuggets. I think they may have one from the Bucks. Those probably aren't going to be the best sort of picks there. So to get the value out of OG from these picks, it's going to be very difficult to do. It's going to take a lot of work for the Raptors to actually achieve this. And from the Knicks standpoint here, they're not going to want to go all out to make this trade happen. Sure, they have the assets available, and if they're smart, they should hang on to them and pivot for the right piece. I don't know if OG is the right piece to this team. OG is a very complementary piece to a team that wants to win a championship, and he can be a very good piece there, but he's not going to raise your team to a completely new level, like let's say Donovan Mitchell may have done for that team. Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett is, a cool backcourt to have, but Is that really making waves in sort of a championship contender with Julius Randle there at power forward? Is that making waves as a contender? No. Does adding an OG Anunoby to that mix make them a championship contender? Also no. So they don't really want to go all out to make this trade happen. The Raptors are obviously going to have that high valuation for OG because they're going to have a higher valuation than any other team has for the player because they understand what he brings to the court. They understand the talent that he has. So it's going to be difficult for the Knicks to really give up all that stuff. The Raptors are going to look at those picks and think, okay, are we going to get the value from those players that we draft that matches the value that we currently have for OG Anunoby, who we still want to continue have develop within our organization, get to a next level perhaps? I mean, the kind of hope that he really steps up his offensive game and gets to that next level really is starting to fade. But if the current OG Anunoby is the best he's ever going to be, that is a fantastic player that you have, especially a team that wants to win as many games as possible and challenge for a championship in the next few years. Like, that is a realistic approach for the Raptors going into the season. Not going to happen this season, the competitive Eastern Conference, but in a few years, as Scottie Barnes is getting better, this team can be the real deal. And maybe OG Anunoby, who is still going to be under 30 years old in a few years' time, that's a player that you still want to have on your team. So we respect OG. The Knicks are going to have interest. Every team at some point is going to have interest. And yes, the Knicks are going to have the assets available, but it just may not be the right return for the Raptors. And the Knicks may not feel that this is the right player to go all out for. I don't know. The Knicks are a pretty stupid franchise a lot of the times, but I just can't see any sort of trade taking place here. The Raptors want to keep him. The Knicks probably don't want to pay the asking price that the Raptors have set for the player because they think that's not going to make them a championship contender. They're going to pivot elsewhere. The Raptors are going to have OG Anunoby. Confidently will say he will be on their team for that opening day against the Cleveland Cavaliers this season. As it comes to the entire season, think about the trade deadline and what that might look like for the Raptors and for other teams and for OG Anunoby. A little bit too far away. I'd be surprised at this point if you told me something were to happen there, but I don't know, maybe the Raptors were playing really well. OG just isn't doing as much as he wants to do. We can pivot those assets, get some other things in return, maybe strengthen our depth. I don't know. A lot of question marks for the future, but we'll confidently say OG will be here from day one, and I'm very confident he'll be here for the entire season and for the entirety of the contract that he has left with the Raptors. We will see, but that's how I feel at this present moment. So what do you guys make of the Knicks' apparent interest in acquiring OG Anunoby through a trade? Do you want to make a deal with the Knicks because of the ineptitude of the franchise and the amount of assets they have? Or do you just want to always keep OG Anunoby? Are you one of those people? I mean, respect if you are. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please, if you did enjoy, be sure to drop a like on the video. It goes a long way to supporting the brand. And make sure for the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news, you are subscribed to Amateur Sports and help me on the road to 12,000 subscribers. Important news update for you guys. Tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern time on my Twitter, I will be giving you some huge news about Amateur Sports and myself. Huge for the brand, huge for more content. If you enjoy Amateur Sports content, if you enjoy me making content, you're not going to want to miss out on this reveal. 12 p.m. Eastern time on my Twitter. Link is in the description for that. If you want to wait, don't want to check it out there, you can also check it out on the Discord, probably a little bit after that. And also, I'll talk about it a little bit after the video that is going out on Thursday on this channel. Hope to see you there. Hope to see you on my Twitter. And I'll see you again next time for another video.